have 2 kids.
2 kids. Addison is 16, brought a boy to church tonight, and then
We'll run that quick.
I'm not supposed to say that, Taylor, but she did. Wow. And then our son Logan is 13.
Church day. Yeah, that's right. I love it.
Brad?
Well, Brad Pepin, my beautiful wife Scarlett, married. Yeah, give it up. New intern. We've been married almost 35 years, so I know you're all thinking they only been married like, 15, 16 years based on the looks of us and everything, but it's been 35, but yeah, all good.
3 girls. Married, babies.
Yes.
Yeah.
9 grandbabies.
9?
9 grandbabies.
Wow. You're getting up there. No. Taylor's old. We can just keep saying that. 39. So old.
Yeah. So Cassie and I have been married for 10 years. It's been fun.
I'm only 33, so I like to just keep reminding him. Yeah. 5
Okay,
kids.
so some questions. I've already started. Okay, so the first question, and we can just open it up, but we kind of went out and just said, what are some questions that you would have for groups so you can answer as you see fit. But the first question would be, what would you say is the one thing, if you could pinpoint that one thing that contributed to the success of your marriage, what would it be?
We prefer the elders to go first.
Let's go.
Yes, go.
So God first, of course, but the part that we talked about that was really important is unity. And so when we first got married, I just had to visualize there was like 3 components in our marriage. It was Brad, it was me, and then it was team. And so sometimes I won for the team, sometimes he won, sometimes it was a percentage, if that makes sense, of the compromise. But it was constantly going, okay, what's best for the team? What's best for the team? And so that unity thing is crucial, I think, and we had to keep choosing team. And it's really crucial for your kids to see, because I just remember when they were little, it's one of those things like, hey, can I have a piece of candy, Mom? And it's like, no, you can't have candy. We're going to have dinner. And then they'd go and ask him. So they're always looking, is there really unity here? And so one thing that helped us when they were little was Mommy's answer is Daddy's answer. Daddy's answer is Mommy's answer, especially when they were teenagers, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's big for sure. Yeah, it really is. I mean, just think about, I always put everything kind of in the sports the sports setting kind of thing. How many times is there a lineman that gets interviewed at the end of a game on how the game went, or the long snapper or something like that? Hardly ever. And so sometimes just in marriage, you have to realize you might not have scored the touchdown, but everything's about the team. And that's the part where I think she and I just constantly go back to and say, okay, what's best for the team in this situation, the team being she and I. And it's been a major thing, because a lot of times you might not even see the why behind a decision that you're making that makes sense for the team. But surely over time, God's going to show you and reveal to you what that is. But Pastor Bill and Sandy say it all the time. If there's not unity between the two of us, and we're not pulling for the team on what's best for this decision we're going to make, then the answer is no until we get a peace about it. And I just encourage everyone out here that is such a major piece, that always be saying, okay, I know what's best for me maybe, and I know what's best for her, but I got to stop and go, what's going to be best for our team, but for our marriage, for our family as a whole. And many times you have to maybe just go ahead and humble yourself and say, okay, this one is maybe not going my way, but I understand the why behind it, and I think that's just a really critical part of it.
On this one, it was hard when it said, what's the one thing? I was like, how can we just pick one thing? But one of the things I think that's been crucial for us is I don't think that you can outserve your spouse. If I'm always seeking ways to serve him and help him with his day and help him fulfill his purpose, there's like a flow, a synergy that goes. And that also goes along, I know Pastor Bill mentioned this on Sunday, but Ephesians 5:33, where it says, every man must love his wife as he loves himself, and every wife must respect her husband. And so there's this mutual love and respect in our marriage that it's a cycle. When you get out of the cycle, it becomes very hard, it becomes divisive. It's like, well, if he's not loving me, I don't want to respect him, or if I'm not respecting him, he doesn't want to love me. So you kind of get out of that cycle. So I think that, for me, is one of the biggest ones, just having a mutual love and respect, serving, like trying to outserve him, or trying to, like when you have that heart posture, I think it just sets your marriage up. Oh, and I have one more thing. Like I said, I couldn't pick one. I think it's also so crucial to surround yourself with the right people. Like, we have been plugged in a church, planted in this church, and have like-minded friends that, I mean, how can your it's going to be very difficult for a marriage to fail or take a major step back when the people around you are like-minded and are going to elevate you. So
Beth always has more than one thing, especially when it comes to stories. I think one of the things that stood out to me when thinking about this was vision. For the lack of vision, people perish. And we have to have a vision for our marriage. You have to have a vision for your family. And when that vision is a vision is simply something that could and should be. And so it's the preferred picture that you have for your relationship with your spouse. And I came from a broken family. We were a blended family, then a broken family. My first dad passed away. And so it was just it was choppy, but there was about a 12-year window where my parents were together. Life was really serendipitous. I mean, it was amazing. We had some of the best experiences, a lot of fun, great family memories. And I keep that in my heart as a vision of the picture of the family that we want, and that sustains me a lot of times. That vision's got to be based on God's word, reflect God's word. Am I reflective as a man of God and as a husband as God's word instructs me? Does our marriage reflect that in our home? Those are the things that begin to build that vision of what we want our marriage to look like. And maybe we're not there today, but every day we wake up, keep that in front of us, that we're working towards this picture of what we want. And if you do that, you're going to get closer and closer to it, as you mature and you grow. So, vision.
Do you want to answer this?
No, you can. Last question. You choose. It's not going to be nice, whatever it's said.
It is nice. It's just not as nice as y'all's.
When Beth was like, we just outserve, I'm like, what is that? It sounds awesome.
So we lived next to the sweetest 87-year-old woman, and one day she was like, you know what? She was like, just watching you and Taylor. She was like, her husband passed away a few years ago, and she was like, just thinking back on my marriage. People ask all the time, what was it that kept you guys married for, 60 years? And she said, tolerance. And I was like, that's it. That's it. And not like I'm just dealing with you, although I am. But I, for example, like things alphabetical order. Roy G. Biv. We keep things in a certain way. And Taylor likes things
Organized chaos.
in piles. And I just had, in our new house that we built, I just put his closet where I never had to pass by it. I just learned and Pastor Bill says don't major in the minors. And so I feel like it's kind of that, where I'm just not gonna make a big deal, where at the beginning I'm like, listen, I organized your underwear in color coordinated, and I just gave it up. So I just
You're
gave
getting a
it
little
up.
personal right now, but
So I just gave up the little things. I think it's a respect, for him, but also I'm not his mom, and you know what? How you want to live, I'm just gonna tolerate the little things, and don't argue about them. You're welcome.
yeah, I would say that's probably for us. We keep. It sounds so cliche, but we keep the main thing the main thing. And yeah, there's things that I would love to change. There were things that would be different. In reality, we have the conversation, it feels like about every anniversary, where she would say, what would you change about me? And I'm like, feels like a trap, not gonna go there. I'm like, nothing. And she's like, well, I have a few things for you, which is great. But no, and I don't know if I've ever said one, because in reality for me, growing up in the house that I grew up in, I want you to be you, and I'm not here to change you. We started dating, I chose you, and that's what I want. Again, I don't want you putting on a mask and acting a certain way, because there is a longevity to that. Here's where we're at. Let's figure out how to make it work and have fun along the way. And that's kind of been the thought process for us, is we don't like she said, we don't major on the minors. And again, if you do, then it feels like a nagging marriage all the time. But in all reality, it took a little bit when we first got married for her to realize I was not doing things just to make her mad. Right. For instance, I had a real difficult time remembering I was good about taking out the trash, not about necessarily putting a trash bag back in. It's a long distance between where the trash cans are and then the outside trash can. And there was one night that she had it, and then let me hear it. And I finally said, I'm not like making a conscious decision not to do this, just so you're fully aware. I'm a guy. I thought about 100 different things in between here and there, and that's my bad. Where to the point where then you try to learn, you try to adjust, but in reality, it's knowing that she's number one no matter what. So our kids try to get us to pity, and my answer now is, did you ask your mom? And they're like, no, because they know her answer, and they know my answer, so they'd rather come to me. But in reality, it's no, we are one unit moving forward. When you see one of us, you see both of us, and we will not go against that. Because when it comes down to it, I married her. You guys are my kids, but I chose her. And so that's always been that place.
All right. What is a good way to navigate major transitional seasons?
Okay. The Bible says, I think it's in Proverbs 27, know the state of your flocks. And so I think anytime you're about to go into a transition, there's a lot of different types of transition. There's job transition, there's relationship transition, financial transition, all those types of things. So just knowing the state of your flocks. Where's my wife at? Where are my kids at? Where are our finances at? And making sure you have a good grip on your stuff, your home, your unit, before you walk in to that transition, I think is very important. And then a part of that is margins, just keeping margins in time of transition, because transition can be flex. You've got to be flexible a little bit. There's some unknowns sometimes in transition, so making sure you've got margins in finances, margins in time, margins to connect with people, and keeping your life healthy in that moment.
Yeah, thinking back to just some major transitions that we've had in our life, I think it came down to us having a heightened level of communication. Prayer together, being on the same page, praying through it. I feel like there's one more thing. I mean, even seeking wise counsel, through a lot of the decisions, it was like just seeking people that have been through transitions like that. There's one more thing, but I can't think of it.
And sometimes you're just thrown into transition. Sometimes you know it's coming. We're expecting a baby, so the whole family is going to shift a little bit here. But sometimes you're just thrown into a transition just like that. You're not expecting it. So for Brad and I, we've had 3 parents that have gone on to heaven. And so when that happens, you're kind of going through a transition differently, if that makes sense. Because you loved your in-law, but your husband's the one that's really grieving because he lost his mother, or vice versa when it's my dad. And so you're in that transition, and I think it's important to look at how that person is feeling, even though it may feel different for you, and be there for the support of that surprise, that transition of not being able to plan for it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think just for us, it's just the older we get, the realization hits you that you're always going to be in some level of transition, because you're going to be married to many people throughout your life. These 35 years, I've known Scarlett in about 6 different ways, I think. So I'm like, whoo, just when I thought I had the one figured out, here comes another one. So all that being said, just plan on knowing you're in transition always. So if you accept that, you get that deep down in your heart and realize that's just a normal part of life, then you go ahead and just accept it. So what I would encourage you is, just knowing that it's going to come, just go ahead and have fun with it and enjoy it and enjoy the ride and realize, wow, what's going to be around the corner now? What's this going to look like, And really just, take the stress off, I guess just, take the emotion out of the situation, use logic a lot of times. A lot of times in our marriage, we just look at each other and just go, okay, let's just get down to logic here. What's really going on here? Sometimes it's just an attack of the enemy, and you just have to go ahead and go, okay, this transition we're going through right now does not have to stick around. We can bind this. We can take authority over this. We understand what our authority is, and we go from there. I mean, we've been through transitions of a daughter going through teenage pregnancy. We've gone through unemployment. I was unemployed for 6 months. My daughter came in one day and said, what's that? Oh, sorry, she was 4. She came in one day and said, Dad, I know you're unemployed, but is the tooth fairy unemployed? Because there was no money under that pillow that night. So the point is, just know that you're going to go through transition and be almost expecting it, because what you do is you take away the sting of the enemy at that point. It's like the enemy's just looking to just to frazzle you a little bit. And so during those 6 months of unemployment, I just said, no, God will provide a job that I'm supposed to have, and I'm going to say no to the ones until I get a peace. So just know that that's the case. I wasn't as fortunate as Scott Houston, who gets a call on his way home from transition on his life, but I had to wait 6 months for mine. But God is good. He just always shows up, and just have that in the back of your mind and continue to pray into that, as a couple every day, that transition is okay. It's okay to go through that.
Yeah, and I would say, to piggyback off that, having your base and your foundation set makes those transitions so much easier. In the sense of, I think about we've been through stuff in our marriage. I had my heart issue, all of these things, and it's like, that could have derailed us, but our foundation was there, and it was all in. It was, okay, we got to make some changes, and I had to change my eating habits, and it was not here is your meal, and then we're all eating this. No, the family is doing this because we are a unit. We are all together, where there wasn't it didn't feel as drastic of a transition as it should have, because our foundation was set. We know where we stand. We know what we stand on. We are not moving from those convictions. And again, it's making sure that you are set in those. So, yeah, the highs, let's celebrate. The lows aren't as low when your foundation is set.
What do you do when you have a major decision to make?
My first thought is there's power in the pause. Because when that major decision comes, you kind of want to, we got to make this decision. We got to do it quick. And it's like, okay, calm down. We're going to take some time. We're going to pray about it. We're going to hear from the Lord. And be on the same page is just huge with that major decision stuff.
Yeah, I think Scarlett's right on. It's amazing on how much just that stepping away from the situation, getting into the Word, not letting the emotion of the situation overtake you, and pull back and go, okay, my goal here through this major decision I have to make is to seek peace and to seek that spirit of peace. And it's back to that thing of the team. It's like, we're going to just stay as a team, and we're going to seek God's direction on this thing. It says in Proverbs 37 that steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his path. And so we know that God delights in the path that we're going to walk. We already know that he has already got a plan. We're just trying to figure out where that plan is and actually seek it. And as Scarlett said, you have to pull away. And sometimes just pull away from the situation. I've even found myself at times just taking a Saturday and just leaving town and going to a cabin somewhere and taking the time to just get quiet and just stop the busyness and the rat race of life, and just wait on that peace, and just to continue to pray into it, and just I'll go out and I'll sit in the deer stand for the day, just to say, okay, I've got to just sit here until I see a deer or seek peace, one of the two. So it's really, you and I always say to each other, there is power in the pause. And you have to just stop and say, okay, this pause there's no rush. We're in an instant society. Everything's got to be, let's make a decision now. No, nobody has to make a decision right this minute. And those types of major decisions, especially if it is considered major, it's okay to say, can I get back to you? Or it's okay in a marriage to say, I don't have the peace. I know you're ready to make an answer or make a decision, but I need 24 hours. Give me that time. So just encourage you to do that. That's helped me at least.
Honestly, our answer is basically the same thing. We just did 5 bullet points: pray, find agreement, find your peace, seek counsel, and then take action on that decision. And there was one decision that I'm thinking of, a major decision that we made, that it wasn't like we didn't have any red flags, but it wasn't like this intense, like, yes, go this way. And so it was like, at that point, you just got to start taking steps. Take those steps of faith. And I mean, we just kept walking through, doing whether it was an application or doing it, whatever it was, until we either were like, okay, yes, this is the way, or it was like, you know what, no, now I'm like, this isn't it. So.
Yeah, just to give Pastor Bill, Pastor Sandy props, one of the things they taught us is everything's a green light until it's a red light, I think is what you guys say. And so sometimes you don't have, we know in part, we understand in part, and we don't know the whole picture, the end result, which we would all love to have. But as Beth was saying, God directs our steps. So sometimes it's just a step, but always starting with that prayer point. We like to seek counsel. We find our peace. We connect with one another. Do we have an agreement? And then we take action. So faith without works is dead. Action is required once you have that peace in that direction to walk in obedience to make that decision. Because usually there's going to be breakthrough or an opportunity, or your next thing is on the other side of that next step.
Two major decisions came to mind for us. One was when we went to adopt Delta. And I came to him. There were a few events that happened just to me personally without involving him that I was like, I think we're supposed to adopt. It was like it kept, when you like buy a red car, all of a sudden you start seeing all the red cars. It was like I knew we were supposed to adopt, and so I started hearing all these adoption things. So I mentioned it to him at dinner one night, and I'm like, okay, I think we should adopt it. He was a hard no. We had talked about this, honestly, I think before we were married. And he was like, no. And so I said, I think that's what we're supposed to do. I need you to pray about it. 2 weeks later, I go back, and I'm like, hey, how you feeling about it? You heard from the Lord yet? And he's like, you were serious. I haven't thought about it once. And I'm like, oh, I'm serious now. 2 weeks later, he comes back. We're sitting at the dinner table, and he was like, he said nothing before it. He said, we're supposed to do it. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, if you're saying it, and I knew it, it's happening now. And 5 years later, the Lord led us there. Pray for us with Delts. Just kidding, we love her. The other one was we decided, I'd been in direct sales for 10 years, and it was our sole income at the time, and it was incredible money. And I was at a brunch with a friend, and it was just like, she was asking these questions that were like leading me to answer things that I had never answered before. And I knew when I left that lunch, I was shaking, crying. I called him and I said, I am not supposed to be in this business anymore. And he was like, I'm sorry, hold on, I have to make a golf swing. This is what I do every day. What do you mean? And I said, no, I'm supposed to be done. I was supposed to speak at a conference a couple weeks later. I was like, no, I'm supposed to be done now. And he was like, let's just let it dwindle. And I'm like, no, now. And I think, so that's kind of, there's always agreement. But one of them was like, I had to wait for him. This next one, he was like, I think he just knew because it was my business that I'd been running that he knew. If I knew, he just agreed with me immediately. He was like, you don't just make decisions like this. He trusted that I heard directly from the Lord. And so agreement, I think, is like we all said, kind of the biggest thing. But being able to trust that they also hear from the Lord and can make great decisions, and you trust their decision-making skills.
Yeah, and that was, with both of those, I think it's, as the husband, that you are the head of the house. And for me, it was, I don't want to make any decision with emotions. A lot of the big decisions that I would have initially been no to, the fact that I paused a minute, prayed, we got an agreement, ended up being yes, are some of the best decisions that we've made. And where I didn't allow those emotions to come in, I didn't think through, does this make sense? It was, no, there's a peace, there's a green light, let's move forward. So, there's been multiple decisions just in our marriage where because we are that unit moving forward, that one unit, that we are one person, a team, whatever decision, I have full confidence that when she brings it up, it's not the first time she thought about it. And I think that there are times where things come up and it's like, oh, you just thought about that. That's not really a direction you necessarily want to go. But when we get to these big decisions, it's, man, here's where we're at. It might be difficult. It might not make sense. It might be uncomfortable. But in reality, those have been, looking back now, the best decisions we could have made were just taking that time, getting an agreement, and then moving forward. But there was a trust level where when she told me, like, when she said we're supposed to adopt, I tried playing it off, pushing it back. She also wanted a whole slew of kids, and I'm trying to get on board with that.
Got my way.
But when that came up, it was like push back, but in reality, I knew, why would we not? And that, again, if she's in, then I'm in. Because again, I trust that that foundation is set and that she's thought through those things. Knowing that she is looking out for the best of our family, not selfishly looking out for what is best for her. So that's where I would put that. Here's a fun one, and we're gonna finish on this one, but how do you fight fair in a marriage?
I think the laws need to go first on that one.
I just let it fly, get it all out, let her sit there and stare at me, and then we talk it out. Is usually how ours go. Sometimes it's real. You guys are laughing. That kind of happens. I think trying to remember that she's not my enemy. You don't sleep with your enemy. It's Valentine's Day, guys. But she's not my enemy. We're ultimately on the same page, trying to accomplish the same thing. And so it's similar to making a big decision. It's like, all right, what are we trying to define here? Where are we trying to go? And then having the humility, I don't want to take everything we talked about, but having the humility to listen, not just hear, but actually listen, understand, comprehend, digest, articulate what they're saying. Because a lot of times I have found in life in general, if you're friends with me, when you listen to somebody, sometimes your perspective can shift a little bit, and you can come their way. So that can diffuse arguments quickly as well.
Yeah. I also just thought, I don't know if I like the word fight. That's not, I would rather say we're having a discussion about some disagreements. Okay, so one thing was I had thought of that we just need to be mindful in marriage. I think for us, I remember there was a season there where we would have whether it was weekly or monthly, like finance meetings, or where are we at, in our finances or with our budget. And it's how many marriages fight with finances? I mean, I think it's pretty high, And there just came a point where I was like, what? This is causing so much division and strife. And it's well, that's the goal of the enemy. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And of course, he doesn't want your marriage to succeed or your family to be healthy. And so it's just being mindful of that and going into that as okay, like he said, we are on the same team. Why are we getting so defensive about this? Let's just lay everything down. Let's work on this together as a team. I also think there's just times where you just need to let things roll off, just don't make it a big deal, so.
Yeah. We used to say that, do you want to waste a Saturday over this? Because when you're young, you fight it all out. The other thing that I think has helped, and I've noticed in most couples, is one of you is usually geared more towards peace at all cost, and the other one's oh no, conflict's good, let's get to the bottom of this, because we're going to hash it out, and then we'll be able to clean it up. Those of us that not enjoy conflict, but are not afraid of conflict, actually see it as a good thing, because then we're going to progress in the relationship. But you usually marry people that are maybe the opposite. So I had to learn that I was kind of being a lawyer. When we would get going, we didn't get going. I would be on February the 17th, you were wearing a blue shirt, and here's what you said. And I would even use the phrase, let the record show. And that I was young. And it hit me.
Say yes, Your Honor.
And it would hit probably, I bet it took me about 5 or 6 years, and I really felt like the Holy Spirit let me know he just wants peace. And Brad's very peace-driven. And so those that are peace-driven have another way of handling conflict. Those of us that are kind of get to the bottom of it can be harsh, and we can be, what? I'm just giving you truth. It's truth. Let's go. And what do the peace people do? No? Can I tell you? Yeah. Well, they shut down. And so then when they shut down, I want to respect. Do you want to say it? I want to respect. Just say it. I shut down.
I shut down.
Say it.
Say it. See? Did you see what's going on?
I thought that was respectful.
No, I'm shutting down.
So his point was, after we worked this through, we were very young. We never do this now. Anyway, after we worked it all through, his point was, I'm not shutting down. I just don't like you. I don't want to be in the same room. So that was a punishment to me as what I thought was, but I'm the truthful one, and I'm being punished. So we both had to kind of grow up in that. And I had to learn calm down. Like, this isn't like, you don't have to prove everything. He just wants the peace. And then I think that got you, because I calmed down, then you were able to express things better. Okay.
Okay, and she's bringing up a very good point, because I had to learn, instead of just going, oh, I'll just sweep this under the rug, it's going to take care of itself. It never does. It will come back. So I have had to learn, okay, peace at all costs, but you have to go through the tunnel of chaos sometimes. You have to go there, but you have to do it fairly. I mean, you have to. So we've just had to learn with each other, okay, I got to get to the root of the issue as quick as I can and try to say, okay, I'm not going to let this stew. I'm not going to stew on this for 24 hours. I'm just going to bring it up and and she loves truth at all costs. It's like, hey, just tell me what's going on. And then all of a sudden, let the record show would come. So,
But I've grown out of that.
no, I'm teasing her. Yeah, but yeah, Beth, I think you just said something that was really good. Sometimes it's you know what? Don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, the older, it's funny because now after almost 35 years of marriage, the stuff that was a big deal back when we were younger just is not a big deal anymore. And you just learn to go ahead and say, back to that whole thing of the team, what's best for the team here, and lower your pride. I'm always right. She just needs to learn that, and then everything's fine. No, I'm teasing. There are three things, real quick, and I'll let you say one more thing. There's a lot of books that have been written about sex, money, and communication, okay? And you guys have probably heard that. And you think about that, and you go, okay, where does the enemy attack us? He attacks us many times sex and just making sure that we stay pure or that we stay honoring each other or whatever it might be. And obviously, we all know the other side of that equation of the devil's out to pervert sex. He's trying to distract marriages away. He's trying to cause division in that area. The second, of course, is money, finances. It's a big thing that a lot of people will fight over. But our tithe is protected by the Lord. Our seed does not fall prematurely from the vine. And so you just have to constantly remind yourselves of that. And then communication. What's the very thing that causes us to be able to ask Christ into our heart? It's communication. It's declaring what God has done. And so a lot of times you have to just get to the point where you say, okay, stop here as the head of the house, or as, in unity here. We're gonna take authority over this situation. We're gonna use our words instead of beating each other up with our words. We're gonna stop and go ahead and say, you know what? God's going to get the victory here. We're going to get the victory in this, and the enemy's not going to get a foothold in our marriage over this issue. So I just think it's funny that those are the three biggest things, is sex, money, and communication, when really God ordained all three of those. We have covenant in all three of those things. We have covenant in sex, we have covenant in communication, and we have covenant with our Lord with our money. And so we just have to be focused on those kind of things, and part of your fighting fair is putting everything in perspective on those areas. So, Scarlett, you want to say one?
Oh, I think just staying to words from always and never. You always do that, you never do that. And staying away from any kind of character stuff. Well, that's how you are, or well, this is how I am. Those big generalizations, I think that can really do damage.
That's literally something we learned in marriage counseling from Roger and Barb Wash, and it's something that we've really held on to, because it is like, you're not always this, you're not never that, whatever. We really don't fight very much. What you were saying, I feel like Taylor is the diffuser. He's I don't want to say because he is the confrontational of the two of us, but he will kind of diffuse my emotion when I'm big and emotional. He'll kind of be like, remember, we're on the same team. Do you remember that? We're fighting for the same thing, and he kind of just brings it back to center. But we don't fight a lot, and I just think that that's because, I don't know, we're around parents that don't fight over little things. We've just learned to not, there's 5 kids, so it could bring room to bicker, but I think we've always been peace in our household. That is the number one thing, that we want our house to be a house of peace. So our kids do not see, if we start raising our voice at each other, even just saying, where is my shoe? They're like, stop yelling at why are you fighting? And we're like, I'm just asking him where my shoe is. It's probably in one of his organized chaos piles. But he's the diffuser. I just have to remember sometimes personally to we're on the same team, bring the emotion down, pause, take a step back. This is not that big of a deal most of the time.
Yeah, we had just gotten engaged, and we had our first fight. We didn't have a fight while we dated. We got
Well, we
engaged.
did once, and he asked me, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "It's
wasn't
doing
raised in an
nothing for the
emotional
situation."
home.
And I was like,
So I
"Oh my
don't do well
gosh."
with crying. It's such a useless emotion to cry. It is a waste of time,
I've like cried
effort.
like twice since.
If there's a good commercial, if there's a good touching commercial, it'll get cast. So it's funny how opposites attract in that. But we just gotten engaged, and she went off crying, and I'm like, why are you crying? Sit down, let's talk. And she goes, we'll talk about it later. I don't want to say something that I shouldn't say. I'm like, when I put that ring on your finger and I asked you to marry me, I'm not going anywhere. Say what you need to say. Let's deal with it and not have to worry about it down the line. Because again, like Brad said, you want to sweep it under the rug because it's easier in the moment. Yeah. But in all reality, how many more times are you now going to have to deal with it where it could have just been dealt with at the beginning? Yeah. So for us, it's like, no, let's hash it out. And again, I think she is also learning as a guy, she wants me to know what she wants before she tells me. Just tell me what you want. I'll do it. It really doesn't matter. Like, we'll talk about dinner. And it's, where do you want, and everybody has heard the lines of, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, I don't care. Well, I want you to care. But what she really wants is me to say the one place that she wants. And again, that would cause the bickering back and forth where, no, whatever you want. I'm good. And again, I learned from my house, we were walking through the airport one time and when we were kids, and Dad's carrying bags, and I think me and Brooklyn were probably fighting or something. And Dad just threw the bags off and just kept walking. He said, I'm no longer being the pack mule. I'm no longer the pack mule of this family. And it was one of those, like, that to me stands out because, again, he was steady. So now, for me, in my home, in our marriage, I'm going to be steady. Mm-hmm. So she, at the beginning of our marriage, she would have said one of her, not least favorite things, but she didn't love that my highs weren't high and my lows weren't low. Well, then we went to dinner for our 10th anniversary, and of course, after you talk about the kids for however long, then it's quiet for a minute, and then I was like, what's your favorite thing about me? I just need a little something, just give me a
Taylor's
little
a
boost
words guy.
Big words guy, but I'm like, give me a little something. She goes, it used to bother me, but now my favorite thing is that your highs aren't high and your lows aren't low. Yeah. And again, it's whatever comes. Transition's coming, great. We're going to come out on top. This storm's here. We're going to stand.
You birth your first baby, he's just,
It was a shock to me. I would have bet my life savings that it was a boy. So when it was a girl, I didn't know what to say. All these emotions came over me. I didn't know what to do. So stone cold face. But no, again, my highs aren't high, my lows aren't low. So I want to be we were going through something early in our marriage, and my dad said, you have two jobs as the husband, and it's number one, you are to be an emotional rock for her. But then number two is you make sure that there's zero fear moving forward. And so for me, I have taken that and put that away where I'm going to be the emotional rock for my home. So she can come in and be as emotional about things as she wants to be. But in reality, here's where I'm going to be, and she can sit back in the confidence knowing that I'm going to be here. So again, it's how we have now come together and then how we operate. Yeah, so any parting words? No?
I would just say you married your opposite on purpose. God knew that. And so, you're the ABCs. Well, Brad's the ABCs and I'm the piles. And it's never going to change who you married. And so it's just doing your best to be who you are and accept each other and just know that there's strength in that you married your opposite.
Life would be so boring with ABCs, is all I'm saying. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Guts Church YouTube channel. I'm Pastor Chano Trevino, the assistant pastor here at Guts Church. And on behalf of our leadership team, our staff, our church, it's our hope that this message met you right where you are. If it did, I bet there's someone you know who could use the encouragement of this message in their life. And you sharing it with them could make all the difference. The mission of Guts Church is to help people win. And you can be a part of that simply by sharing, or better yet, inviting someone to tune into Guts Church online with you every week. Take that next step to be a part of what God is doing right now in this moment in time by being committed to showing up, placing a premium on God's word, and receiving all that God has for you. You can share this message, gather your friends for services, make it a priority to make this the place you want to be. God has so much for you. I truly believe that. We love you. We're praying for you. Can't wait to see you soon.